Hi, it's Angela Critters. We're making one of my very favorite cakes. It's a blueberry cheesecake dump cake, and we finish it off at the top with some fresh blueberries. And you'll see we've got our ingredients assembled. We've got 2 cups of ice cold butter that we sliced thin. We've got half a cup of confectioner's sugar. We've got 1/4 cup of sour cream. We have 1 egg, room temperature, beaten up. 2 cans of blueberry filling. The only vanilla I use, Watkins. And I need a white cake. And all I have is a Dolly's coconut. I don't want to use a yellow cake, so I think that's going to be really good. But normally it calls for a white cake. And then we're garnishing it with some fresh blueberries that I've washed. And I picked off all the little stems. Now, here's the best part. Inside of here, we have 1 package of room temperature cream cheese that is softened. And I always do my cream cheese and beat it up first with my egg and my sour cream with my vanilla. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and beat up my cream cheese first. Get it kind of whipped. All right, so we're going to put in our sour cream. Let me unlock it. Have you ever made a dump cake? If you haven't, you'll fall in love with them because they're so easy. There's so few steps. Most are just 4 ingredients. Some dump cakes have an egg in them, some don't. This one does not because it's got the sour cream. Okay, so we just added our sour cream. A room temperature egg. Remember, always beat it up in a separate container. What if my egg had gone bad and I just cracked it open? I would have lost my cream cheese and my sour cream. So we're going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla. Let's get that in. That's a teaspoon. And we're going to let this whip up. You don't spray your pan. I'm using a 9x13 because I'm taking this somewhere. I'm using a 9x13 disposable, I meant to say. And you just dump in your 2 cans of your blueberry pie filling. You can make your pie filling homemade if you prefer. But these dump cakes always call for pie filling. Sometimes you can use lemon, strawberry, cherry. I've made dump cakes every flavor. I have another one coming up real soon, but I'm not going to tell you the flavor. Somebody might steal my idea, but it's going to be so good. Get this out of the way for a second. Remember, when you're beating your cream cheese and things, always come up and bring everything back down to the sides. Because you see how here I've got bits of cream cheese way up here. It won't get properly blended up. And then you pull from the bottom too to blend it up. So we're going to go back in. Then we're going to start adding our confectioner's sugar. Normally, if it's a lot of confectioner's sugar, you add a little bit at a time. But this isn't that much, so we're not going to have to worry about that. So there's our half a cup of confectioner's sugar. One of my dump cakes uses a whole cup of confectioner's sugar, but the sour cream, for some reason, makes it where you don't need a whole cup with this one. And I've got some of my goo in here. Let's get that back in. I'll be honest, the hardest part of making a dump cake for me is cutting the cold butter into thin slices. My hands don't work well at all. So if it's really cold, it works better. So if you have time, put it in the freezer for about 5 minutes, and it's going to slice so much better, because the thinner the butter is, the better everything is. It's just because the butter is going to go all the way across the top and just ooze over everything while it bakes. All right, I think this is just about done. I see a little bit of cream cheese still. I got a little bit of egg left. All right, let's give it one more little whirl. All right. We got to get our other can of our blueberries in here. So let me get this open. Should have had it open. I'm sorry. I used 2 different kinds of blueberries. I used one cheap can from Aldi, and then I got a good organic can from my Harris Teeter, and I'm mixing them up just to kind of improve the flavor a little bit, and then you spread it out kind of evenly. Of course, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a dump cake. Now, if you're making homemade blueberry syrup, blueberry pie filling, you would be using 42 ounces of the pie filling that you're making, because each can is 21 ounces. All right, so now we have our fantastic sour cream, vanilla, and cream cheese. Ooh, it looks so good with the powdered sugar mixture. And we're going to put that across the top. If you see little bits of cream cheese, that's okay, because it's going to cook as it's going to melt as it cooks. I'm going to spread it out after I kind of dab it on. It doesn't have to be perfect, because it also melts. The cream cheese mixture, the filling, is going to kind of spread. And see, oops, I just grabbed up some pie filling. You're supposed to be real careful not to. I couldn't see real good. It doesn't really matter, but you're just not, you're supposed to be careful. And when you go to eat this, you're going to say, wait a minute, she didn't tell me that this is blueberry cobbler. It tastes like blueberry cobbler. The best blueberry cobbler that you ever tasted anywhere in your entire life. I mean, it's that good. And you can put ice cream on it, of course. And after you cook it, try to let it sit for at least 15 minutes. You don't want to burn your tongue. It's going to be hard to wait, but you can do it. Okay. So let's throw on our box of dry powder. We're going to sprinkle it across. And we're just about done. I'm a big fan of cooking with cake mixes. I think they were one of the greatest inventions ever made. I mean, I don't mind measuring my stuff out. Who doesn't? But cake mixes are just so versatile. All right, let's get this off of here and dump on the cake. Here we go. And I'm going to use a spoon. That one's got holes in it. My hands are kind of sticky. Let me grab an old spoon. Okay. I don't want it to all, like, if I were to have an accident, my hands don't work real good, I would end up with all the cake mix in one spot. So I like to use a spoon. Most people can just hold it over there and, you know, dab their cake mix. But I just can't. I've had too many accidents cooking. I know my limitations. So it's any white cake. But like I said, I'm using coconut because that's all I had. And Dolly's coconut cake is so good. You really can't taste the coconut in it by the time that the cream cheese and everything cooks up. It's really good. This is one of my favorite ones, like I said. Now, I'm not going to make you watch me put all the butter on. I'll get it started and then I'll stop the camera and you can see it finished. All right. See, now I can kind of dump. But I couldn't until I knew that I had it evenly spread. Because it would have made a big blob on that blueberry filling. Okay, so we've got this kind of even. Because we want our butter to be kind of even. See, there we go. There we are. Okay. Now, real quick, because my butter's had time to soften even more. While I was cutting the butter, every time I would have a little piece that would like break off because my fork slipped or something, I put it in a little corner. Because if I have little places that don't have butter on them, I can fill in the holes. Because we're going to cover this whole thing with butter. We start at the corner and we fit it tightly in. Some dump cakes have you melt the butter. I've never been a fan of those. I just don't do well with them. They don't turn out good. You end up with dry pockets of cake. And we don't want dry pockets of cake. We want it to be gooey and good. All right, I've used my whole 1 cup of butter. And you cut it real thin. And my hands, since they don't work that well, I didn't get it as thin as possible. So I'm having to cut a little bit more butter. And then you'll see here on the edges, I've used all those little pieces that I told you about that look like this. And I've tapped them all down, and I need to put a little bit more there too. So I'm going to cut up a little bit more butter. All right, I've got it completely covered all the way at the edges. Now, you won't see every dump cake recipe that does that, but I have found it makes the best dump cake if you make sure everything's covered, everything in the butter. And we're just going to sprinkle some. Now, most dump cakes don't have fruit on top, but I like to put fruit on this. It just makes it prettier. And since I'm sending it somewhere, and you don't have to use a lot of fruit. Sometimes I use enough so everybody gets a bite, but it's really almost kind of a garnish. I just like fruit. You can use as much fruit as you want, but I'm just going to, like I said, do enough just to make it pretty. And it's going in at 350 for about, I guess, 40 minutes. So I'll set my stove at 35 minutes, because everybody's is a little bit different, their temperature. All right. Let's just let those randomly drop on. And it's going in the oven. I'm going to put it on an old cookie sheet because it's in a cheap metal pan. Y'all all know how that can make a big disaster. Can't you see me carrying this heavy thing across the kitchen and having it land on the floor? All right, here we go. Isn't that pretty? 1 blueberry cheesecake dump cake coming up. It's out of the oven. The house smells like heaven on earth. Now, I can't cut it right now to show it to you because it's going somewhere for a luncheon, but I'll ask them if they'll take a picture for me and send me a picture of it, because it looks just like a cobbler when you go into it. And as always, I'm going to put the directions in the description. And if you make it, I hope you love it as much as I do. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.